Okay, this is Joe and Louise. We're going to continue our discussion regarding the misconceptions, misconstruing, whatever you want to call it, of the Crowley case update, June 9th, 2020, from Dan Hennen. So we're going to go with it now.
They're interesting, but they weren't enough to move the needle forward to do anything about it. Catherine reiterated, and I've reiterated in the past on my videos, is that each one of these by themselves is enough to reopen the case.
I don't think that's true.
Each one of these.
I don't agree with it either.
Deleted on
I
David's
think there isn't really anything of any evidentiary value that's
Right.
been confirmed to be taken seriously.
Right, exactly. I agree with the police department, including the multiple blunt force trauma. The police department outright told the group that they had looked at the pictures, but they were actually present at the autopsy and they did not see any evidence of multiple blunt force trauma.
whole Facebook page after the bodies were discovered. The whole disorder. No blood on the benches. So, Number goes on to say that was David Crowley injured before he was killed? He says, no, I don't believe he was injured. Catherine went on to say that there's a skull piece on a photographic piece of evidence that shows a multitude of indentations on that skull. A skull, a human skull on your head. After you take the brain out of the hair, the scalp out, it's much like a shell of an egg, a smooth surface.
It's not a smooth surface.
This one has indentations.
I think everybody knows what a skull is. They don't need it explaining in that kind of detail. But there is no evidence that even says who that skull piece belongs to. And I kind of think that a medical examiner can tell what is a part of a male skull, what is part of a female skull, what is a back part, what's a front part, what's a top part.
Well, the other thing we need to bring up too is if a coroner, present or retired, is going to make a statement that there's foul play, whether it be multiple blunt force trauma or anything, they are obligated to contact the police department and say, hey, this is my job, this is my title, these are my certifications or my qualifications, and I see this. And that didn't happen. We're both aware, as are many others, that the Apple Valley Police Department did receive a 12-page email, but it wasn't from a coroner, it was from Catherine.
Exactly. And like you were saying with the coroner's duty, with that report they make, they are going to provide the evidence as to why they believe this is what it is. Yet it's never happened. Like the medical examiner who performed the autopsies, like the apparent animal scavenging, they don't need to go into detail to describe it because those in that field know what it looks like. Therefore, it's just saying it's obvious that there was animal scavenging.
Right. And I got to say this now, I'm going to go into the qualifications. I need to say this. Okay. I'm a retired paramedic. Between my time as an EMT and my time as a paramedic out in the field, that means working out there where I've seen different scenes. I've seen multiple system, multi-system trauma or multiple blunt force trauma. Catherine will go out there and she'll tell, individuals that she was an EMT, and I'll give her the fact that she was an EMT for however long she was an EMT. It varies between 3 years and more. She claims 10 years. The records show 3. However, in addition to that, she brings up the fact that she had 1,000 hours worth of um, hospital volunteer time.
Volunteering.
Right. I mean, that's great. You know, I commend her on 1,000 hours worth of volunteer time in a hospital, but numerous things here. Number one, if you're in a hospital, you're in a controlled environment. Number two, you're not going to see the things in a hospital that you're going to see out in the field. So,
No.
I mean, so how you're going to come up? I mean, I'm wondering just how many times Catherine has actually seen multiple blunt force trauma. And then we have this other thing where she claims that she worked for or volunteered with the Sacramento County coroner's office, yet nobody at the coroner's office knows her there. And Louise, I believe you have something in writing saying that nobody knows who she is.
Yeah, she's unknown to all staff there, and they weren't very happy that there's someone who's misleading the public, trying to imply that they somehow work there by standing outside and having their photo taken by a sign.
Okay, so like I said, the multi-system trauma or multi-blunt force trauma, you know, multiple blunt force trauma, the people who were on scene, the coroners, the police, nobody saw that. That is not what was presented to them when they were doing the autopsy. It wasn't.
Because it's not there.
No,
It
it's
wasn't missed. It just is not there.
right. And I mean, and I think that Detective Gummer, in all fairness, we heard Detective Gummer outright state that there was nothing there. There was nothing there.
No, nothing that is consistent with multiple blunt force trauma. Yes, you've got a, for want of a better word, broken in bits skull, but that is linear fractures radiating from a gunshot wound. And then the scavenging on top of that, hence that explains why that's like that. And it's a post-mortem injury, for want of a
Right.
better word.
I think
They,
we go ahead.
that's it. There was nobody was injured whilst they were alive, other than the moment the bullet hit them
Right. And I think
and
we
killed
should
them.
bring these up too. We're going to cut back to two different statements that were made directly by Detective Gummert. And I think those of you who are listening need to listen to this. Take any interjections out and just listen to what Detective Gummert himself is saying. This is the first one.
Delve over the information firsthand and we're confident with where we're at. And it's really an roundabout way. That's the answer I'm going to give you is myself and the other persons that were here on the scene, analyzing the data from the first call to the end. You know, I don't want to just.
I think we need to say, you just heard Detective Gummert say, this is the data that they looked at. This is the evidence they looked at from the very beginning, from the time of the call until the end. Now we'll complete.
Believe that we are where we need to be, and certainly you.
Okay, so that was where Detective Gummer told them that, you know, they were on scene from the very, you know, beginning and until the end. Now, also regarding the multiple blunt force trauma, etc., and the group or Catherine or Dan or the civilian investigators presenting this to the Apple Valley Police Department, I think we should listen to what Detective Gummert himself again stated to them in his interview.
I'm understanding you correctly, Ben, is that you are not saying that you see the multiple blunt force trauma.
I'm answering that what I see is that we completed a thorough investigation and that I am not seeing anything to date, including the information you provided me, that gives me any cause for concern that we missed something and that it needs to be reopened.
So what Detective Gummert is just saying is that even though they presented themselves, the group presented Detective Gummert with their alleged, evidence that
A collection of opinions.
yeah, right. It was an opinion. I mean, it was their opinion. It wasn't the detectives' opinion. The detectives were basing their information on fact.
And evidence
Right. So
and an investigation that they've
and
spent a year investigating.
yep, they spent good part of a year investigating, and I guess you can call this facts versus speculation. And let's just go with it. The fact is the detectives were there. The fact is the detectives saw the evidence from the very beginning all the way to the end. The fact is the detectives outright stated there is nothing that was provided the entire time to the Apple Valley Police Department that would lead them to reopen that case because they firmly believe in what was found.
With their experience and qualifications.
And their training, exactly. Their training, their experience, their qualifications, their certifications, and something that we need to point out again, that we did in the earlier, the earlier segment, is that these individuals, the detectives, are treated, or they're not treated. The detectives are trained, and this isn't just a one shot fits all or one time fits all training. There's repeated training after this, and you also see this in the field. And you may not see a Apple Valley, and we need to point this out too. Apple Valley themselves, the police department, may have seen 5 homicides or 2 homicides or 7 homicides in however many years. But you have to remember that the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, which covers statewide, was involved in this investigation as well. So if Apple Valley, as Dan's pointed out, supposedly was in over their head, I'm very sure that BCA is extremely experienced and would have
And
got
it went to Hennepin County, not the sort of the standard like Apple Valley town
right,
coroner
exactly. It wasn't just
or
Apple
medical
Valley.
examiner.
Yep, the medical examiners, as far as the actual autopsy went, the medical examiners were on top of it. That's they I'm sure that they perform thousands of what do you call it? Thousands of autopsies every single year. So
And ones that actually do have multiple blunt force trauma.
right. Oh yeah, definitely. Yep, and exactly. You're right.
So they know what to look for.
Yep, exactly. So if there was multiple blunt force trauma there, I'm sure that a qualified, trained individual from Hennepin County would have been like, hey guys, this is what we have here. And not only did the detectives who are trained in this not see it, not only did the coroner's office not see it, basically nobody saw it except for Catherine and Dan and Greg and Sophia. But then again, what are their qualifications? I mean, I could go
And how
into
many cases have they solved?
well, I mean, we know that Dan has investigated a whole bunch of them. I mean, he has a Facebook page for all these different curious cases. He has YouTube videos. But what I'd love to see is a letter from a police department anywhere saying that Dan Hennen or Catherine Michelle, in my professional opinion, per her, where does this professional opinion come from? Show me something. Show me a
It shows
letter.
your profession
Right. Show
or
me.
shows an acknowledgement.
Right. Show me something that says thank you for for solving our case.
Yes, exactly.
I mean,
Or
there were
your information and research has been imperative to us solving this cold case.
right, exactly. And it doesn't even have to be a cold case. It could be an active case. You know, the Colorado just had recently a case out there, and I didn't see
Colorado always seems to have things going on in it at the minute.
right. And I got to tell you, the one thing I noticed I didn't see was they didn't call Catherine Michelle in. I'm sure that Catherine Michelle, if she was called in, and this isn't to sound sarcastic, well, maybe it is to a little bit, but I'm sure that if Catherine Michelle has all these expert, she's such an expert that she would have been one of the first people that would have been called in. And by golly gee, I bet you that she would have solved the case for them.
Yep.
And
I mean, there was the Chris Watts one. Then there's this one with these two kiddies that have been missing. There's quite a few in Colorado.
Right, exactly. And I mean, this is the thing. We
I follow them as well. So, and I've never, ever, ever heard Catherine be interviewed on them for her professional opinion or her psychological analysis of these people.
Right, exactly. I mean, I'm surprised that we haven't seen, Catherine on, 2020 or, Dateline NBC or something like that. I mean, this is where you see people who, I mean, I'm not going to toot my horn, okay, but, we all know that I, have interviewed myself, different, suspects, different guys that are serving multiple, I got one guy who's serving 1,800 years. I got another guy who's, serving 6 consecutive life sentences. Okay. That was actually picked up by the New York Post and the New York Times. Okay. So, I mean, I have recognition to what I do. I don't see any recognition for Catherine. I just don't. And, what's the big deal? And what's the big deal about showing your credentials or your qualifications? What's the big deal? Every time somebody asks to see it, we see I volunteered 1,000 hours with the Red Cross at a hospital. For all we
Here's
know,
a photo of me getting a certificate.
right, you could see a certificate, but the fact of the matter is, the certificate doesn't say what she was doing. It doesn't even say she was
Exactly.
working in the emergency room.
Exactly.
For all we know, she was changing bedpans. And I don't want to belittle her. But the fact of the matter is, when you're working as a PCT or a patient care tech, which is what most EMTs work as in the emergency room. And even if they do work as an EMT in the emergency room, they're not doing emergency. They're taking blood pressures, they're taking vital signs. I mean, that's not the same as somebody out in the field.
Well, it's like you have say, I'm just gonna go into a different example. Say you have, gonna take the dog to the vets. So you've got your staff who are like front of house, who might know a little bit about animals in general, but they're there to do the customer care and organise all the bookings and everything, and send things off for testing if it needs to go out of house. Then you've got the veterinary nurses and the veterinary technicians, and then you've got the vet who's the veterinary surgeon, and so they're like tiered, and the veterinary surgeon is the top tier, and you might, as a technician or a veterinary nurse, you have experience and you're seeing things, but you're not qualified to say for a fact that this is this and that's that, as if a vet
Right,
would.
exactly. Exactly. You're also um you know it's based on knowledge and training. I mean, again, I don't want to toot my horn, but an EMT back in the day and even recently, they get about 100 and between 160 and 200 hours worth of training. Those were hours, not days, not years. Okay. A paramedic gets 2 years of classroom and over 2,000 hours of rotations, meaning you're in a hospital, you're in the emergency room, you're in obstetrics, you're in, you're going to be in labor maternity, you're going to be in the psych ward, you're going to be all over the place. You're going to deal with drug addicts, you're going to deal with, people delivering people's babies, you're going to deliver people burn unit. I mean, God, I did time in the burn unit. I mean, these are things that you are going to, you're going to see. Now take
Yeah.
a paramedics training as opposed to an EMT's training, and my God,
Yeah.
I don't want to belittle the EMTs because there's a saying out there, and it's paramedics save lives, EMTs save paramedics. If you have an EMT that's been on the job for 10, 15 years, it's not saying that EMT is not going to pick something up, okay? But the fact of the matter is, okay, when you look at it from the training level, most EMTs do maybe a weekend course every couple of years to recertify, whereas a paramedic, we have to go through continuing medical education, CMEs, all year long. We have to renew our ACLS. We have to renew our PALS. We have to renew our PEP. Okay, all this stuff.
Yeah.
That's
I think people will get the understanding
right.
the different layers and experience and qualifications.
Right. So I mean, this is
So just own it. It's just don't go above your own station. And anyone who's professional wouldn't cross that line anyway.
right. Exactly. Let's see what else Dan has to say in this. I mean, as I'm listening to some of the things, I just can't believe how far off they are.
Blew it up, gave him large photographs, circled them, and sent all this to the mayor, to the attorney general, to the police chief, to the police captain, saying this is evidence right here that he was beaten and tortured before he was killed.
Okay, let's talk about the torturing as well. If you were tortured, if somebody was tortured, we've gone over this before, you're going to see a lacerated liver, you're going to see a ruptured spleen, you're going to see, fractures, you're going to see all kinds of stuff. And there was none of this was present. None of this was present.
None of this is present. None of this is recorded in anything. It's a figment of their imagination, causing trouble again from an unqualified person.
I mean, they literally went there and they circled what they thought were indentations. I mean, if you look at the inside of a skull, you're going to find where the ligaments actually harden up and fuse the skull together. There's a ligament. I can't remember what the name of it is off the top of my head right now, but there's a ligament that literally does not totally fuse together until the person is 29 to 30 years old, which is right around the time of David, David, but not Kamel, but David. Okay. If that didn't harden and a bullet went into his head like it did, it's going to shatter the skull. And on top of it, we need to remember that they used hollow points. Hollow points were
Yeah.
used.
And
Okay.
it's all the kinetic energy.
Yep. Right. Exactly. Hollow points are made to expand and to cause maximum damage, and that's what was used. So, but as far as those circles go, you might as well
You can
use.
circle it until the cows come home, but it's not going to make it become multiple blunt force trauma. All it
Right.
says is that you don't know what you're talking about, and you're trying to convince a qualified person that it's something that it's not.
Those could have been shadows.
Could have
Could have
been
been
anything.
shadows.
Could have been bite marks. Could have been fluff and hair that's coagulated.
I mean, if
Anything.
not for anything, but as I sit here and I talk, to you, okay, I pull out the autopsies, okay, and the autopsies literally go into talking about the scalp and the hair and the and matter of fact, there was hair on the scalp, okay, so if there was hair on the scalp, then that was definitely the inside. Okay. And if that was the inside of that was the inside, then where are the pressed skull fractures? And I mean, they're outright saying in here that there is no other, there's no other damage.
Yeah,
None.
because it's not real. It's
And
multiple blunt trauma.
by the
Rubbish.
way, I just want to point this out too. On page 5, what I bet you they didn't pick up on either. Additional procedures. Documentary photographs were taken. So
Yeah.
everything that they're saying they found is backed up by photographs.
And video, and from numerous different agencies, because you'll have the police doing things, they'll have BCA people there as well. Then you've got the medical examiners who are going to document, record, and dictate the whole process of the autopsy, as well as all the samples, and everything is uploaded and given back to the police, but it's not necessarily printed out on paper for the BCA report, but they've still got all of the information that is needed
Right.
to prove the case.
And they have to also remember, okay, let's just bring this, because they like throwing out the fact that Dr. Lewinsky's name out there and how Dr. Lewinsky covered this up and covered that up. I just wanted to point this out, okay? You had multiple detectives there. You had not only did you have Dr. Lewinsky there, okay, but you had Michael Morey, who's the assistant medical examiner, Lauren Jackson, okay. I mean, these people were there as well. All right.
Yeah,
So,
and there was
and they
probably other
assisted.
people there as well who just aren't listed down there because they weren't technically involved in the
Right.
autopsy,
I
but
mean,
they were
there were
there anyway.
right. There were
To
numerous.
work there
There were
or
right.
whatever.
There were numerous. There were numerous autopsies going on. I mean, I believe it was Kamel and Ranya's autopsies were like getting done almost simultaneously. And
Yeah,
let's look who was there. We're going to see Sean McKnight, Brian Bone, Jim Gummert, and Tommy Booth. Okay, that was that, and this is off of Ranya's. So they were there. If they were there for Ranya's, then they were there for Kamel's. They might not be
yeah,
listed on there, but they were there.
correct.
So let's see what other misconceptions we can come up with there.
And he says, you know what? I was in the
Because it wasn't there.
We know that Officer Gummer is correct, and it was a fact that he was in attendance when the medical examiner, pathologist, did the autopsy. He was there,
There you go.
and there was no injuries on David's body.
There you go.
No, of his body, no injuries. Of what was left of the body, we know that the skull fragment, the piece of bone that was picked up along with other bone fragments at the site, wasn't part of the David Crowley autopsy. I don't really. That was
We need to pause this really quick.
Uh-huh.
There were numerous pieces of skull that were found, and I believe the autopsy said they articulated well together. Does that sound correct?
Yeah.
So how were they not part of the autopsy?
I think they're referring to, there was mention of one piece that didn't fit with David's skull because they'd already found the other pieces and it articulated together. So, they're aware they're doing an autopsy of 3 people that were in the same location when they died. So they will have done whatever they have to do with their procedures to then put that piece of skull with Kamel. Because if David's head is reconstructed back together, then Kamel's the only other person
Adult.
with, and with like their head not intact, because Ronnie was still intact.
Right. So we had one piece of bone or one piece of skull, and magically, well, if that's the case, and Dan's saying and that one piece of skull that didn't articulate, which would have been for Kamel and not for David, then that would blow, I believe that would blow the multiple blunt force trauma out of the water, because they're saying that David had multiple blunt force trauma, but they're saying the piece of the skull did not belong to David because the rest of the
Yeah, but
skull articulated.
in the next breath, they're saying that there isn't any skull pieces there. So
Exactly.
it depends on what video you listen to. Sometimes they say that the dog ate everything and there isn't any bones there, even though there are bones there, and he really didn't consume that much of the bones.
Well, not to say anything out of line, but we do know that David apparently had 2 mandibles.
Yes, it's brilliant biology, that.
And we don't understand
Which
why.
must mean then that Kamel also had 2 maxillas then.
Right. And then we also know that their hands were magically placed in bags before the medical examiner found them.
Which just happens to be a standard procedure of bagging the hands when a body is found and transported, so they can protect any evidence that may be on the hand, in the hand, under the nails.
You're exactly right. They're going to be looking for possible fingernail, like if somebody scratched somebody. They're going to look for broken bones. They're going to look for missing bones. There's all kinds of things they're going to look for. So, all right, here we go again.
Okay.
I think they later put it together that it fit or articulated nicely in the piece of the brain of the skull that David was missing. Therefore, it was his.
There you go.
But I don't think the examination of that piece was done during the David Crowley autopsy, in which James Gummer was sitting there watching. So there was probably no discussion of that. I'm sure it was not even brought up. They didn't even know it was David.
Well, the autopsy is the medical examiner's domain, and
Exactly.
not. I can't think of the right terminology, but it's not like the police process the scene, as did the BCA. Medical examiner, that the bodies are classed as evidence at this moment in time.
The medical
And if,
examiner is going to look at all the evidence that are there. I mean, if there's skull pieces, they're going to look and see it's going to happen right then and there. It's not like the medical examiner says, hey, here's the autopsy. We'll get back to you next week on the skull.
and it's not like they're just going to throw away other body or bone pieces that they know are going to belong to another body that was at the scene. They're not going to just bin them and disregard them like Dan Hennen disregards any respect for the family in the way he discusses any of this.
Let's bring this up, okay? Dan, Greg, Catherine, Sophia all said they're not police officers, they're not medical examiners, okay? And they want to do this citizen journalist, citizen investigators, whatever you want to call them, okay? But the fact is, I wonder if Dan can tell me what the protocol is for the ME's office performing an autopsy and looking at the body parts. I'm sure he
Yep.
can. I'm sure Catherine can. But wait, I think if the ME came on and actually said what the protocols were, they would beg to differ because that's what seems to happen all the
Yeah.
time. So, but the fact of the matter is there's a protocol and the ME's office did what they were supposed to do.
In fact, I
Again.
wouldn't even be surprised if Catherine wrote the protocol.
Oh, God.
Sound. This is James Cullen. It did make it sound that, we left it up to the medical examiner. We sat there, we took in whatever they said, and it made it sound to me, my opinion was that if something did come up during that autopsy, Apple Valley Police probably would have yielded to that and probably would have taken that into consideration, maybe done a retraction of a statement, or maybe did a clearer statement, or fixed something, or adjusted something, or went back and told the arrested investigators, here's what we found, let's go down that avenue and research it. This is the very next day. This is January 18th, 2015 is when that autopsy was done by Jessica Walensky.
Dan?
So at the time,
Hold on. Dan, I heard Dr. Lewinsky's name. I didn't hear anybody else's. He doesn't say anybody else's. Louise, did you hear anybody else's name there?
I didn't.
they found no injuries. But if something would have come up, I think,
If something would have come up.
crew probably would have been open to the fact of getting something corrected or getting something altered. That's my takeaway from listening to the Catherine Michelle information. I think Catherine could have given James Gumber 100 photos of actual evidence, and he wouldn't take it because he thinks she's just.
It's not actual evidence, though, is it?
Hold on a second. I want to back this up a second. Hold on. Listen to this again because this is a true statement.
Crew probably would have been open to the fact of getting something corrected or getting something altered. That's my takeaway from
Here we go.
Catherine Michelle information. I think Catherine could have given James Gumber 100 photos of actual evidence, and he wouldn't take it because he thinks she's just a person off the street.
Because she is just a person off the street.
Yep.
With no professional background.
It-
Medical examiner or some other
But I thought Catherine did have a professional background.
that would have come and done some research and presented it back to Gumber. I think that maybe he would have come back and said, you know what, now we have something.
But the fact is, the medical examiner's office did the research. They did the autopsy. They looked at the evidence, and there was nothing else there.
I don't mean to be like vulgar or anything, but they didn't just look at the evidence, they handled the evidence, they examined the evidence, they photoed the evidence, they turned the evidence, they documented every little bit of detail on each of those
They checked
pieces of things they found.
They checked the clothing and the personal effects. They checked the internal, external. They were all over this. They checked everything. They checked the entrance wounds, the pathways, the trajectory. They checked the neck. They checked the head and central nervous system. They checked the cardiovascular system, the respiratory system. They checked the hepatobiliary system. They checked the hemopoietic system. They checked the endocrine system, the gastrointestinal, the musculoskeletal. They checked everything. As a matter of fact, not only did they do that, but here you go. They also conducted microscopic examinations of the liver, the lung, the heart, and the kidney. Sounds like pretty thorough to me.
Yep.
See, that's right. Let's look into this again. So I think what he's doing is taking the other officials and other agencies' word versus just citizen journalists. And
There you go.
That's fine.
Taking the professional's opinion.
That people with
Right. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to. They're taking the professional's opinion. How do you take a citizen journalist opinion over a trained medical professional?
I've no idea. And they still haven't in 5 years managed to find a trained professional who's going to go on record and agree with them,
Well,
because no one does
hold
agree with
on,
them.
hold on now, okay? Because they've gone to trained professionals supposedly. It's just none of those trained professionals will come forward because they're afraid to get harassed. But here's my thing. I brought this up time and time again. You don't need to put this stuff on YouTube. If you have a coroner that has something, don't bring it to YouTube. Bring it to the police department. The police
Yeah,
department's not going to harass you.
get that person. You don't need to do it for that person. That person's professional. They're quite capable of typing up a letter on their official letter-headed paper, or writing their resume up to say, this is what I did when I was active in my career, and this is what I'm seeing, and based on this case and this case that I'm going to use to compare it with, you can see this and this and this and this and this and this. And then you take it to the police and you let them do an investigation, because if you put it out on the internet, then if there was something sinister going on, then no one's going to get a fair trial, are they? And you've just got no justice for David or anybody.
But
But it's
but
not
here
even true.
but here's the other thing as well. You would still be getting a professional opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and there's no professional opinion here. There's a 12-page email from Catherine. And you know, and I know that in this very video that Dan is speaking about, which Catherine's, for those of you who want to listen, we're talking about Catherine's telephone interview with Detective Gummert, which I don't even know if we can call it a telephone interview with Detective Gummert. Yes, it was conducted over the phone, but Detective Gummert was actually recorded without his knowledge. And although it may not have been illegal to do so, it was definitely underhanded. What should have happened was it should have been, the question should have been posed to him: is it okay with you, so that I don't misquote you, so that I don't forget anything? Is it okay with you if I record this? But that's not what happened. So, but the fact of the matter is that in this same video that was put out there, it outright came up the opposite. It was Catherine saying, I found this. I showed you pictures of their dogs. I showed you pictures of the people. I.
Yep.
And she actually
I think, and if you look, you can see.
right. And she actually misled a lot of her followers as well, because she was telling them that the coroner was, she was going to the mailbox, walking to the mailbox. She had to get to the post office to send the stuff from the coroner, but that's not really what happened. The same thing with, the mayor and the police chief and everybody, she was supposedly going to the post office with all these packages of mail. If you remember, oh, I had all these packages, and everything was done by email. So I don't know. But anyways, let's go with the next thing.
Background experts in some of these fields were providing information to the sheriff, to the police department. Seems like they're not interested in listening to it. So part of me still thinks that they're not taking anything that various people are giving to them as evidence. And,
Because it's not evidence.
And so I've said it myself. This is legitimate facts and evidence that we're providing.
No, it's not.
That could be the same thing coming from a medical thing.
Opinion,
Out here with nothing better to do.
and an uneducated one at that.
So he says he's definitely not going to do this in the case. There's nothing else. Now, would he be open to questions like that, Delmer? Like I said, with another agency, I think he'd be open to it. Someone off the street, we could hand him the fired gun, and he wouldn't. So the question now is the department that gullible or insecure or unknowledgeable, or is this case being covered up? So here's my question on the Catherine Michelle questioning to James Gummer. She said it very good. He didn't answer the question, but she said, by looking at that piece yourself, not waiting during the autopsy, what did you think as the sergeant of detectives for the entire detective unit at Apple Valley? When you saw that, is that enough for you to say, wow, look at these marks on the skull? He didn't answer that.
No.
Okay, I believe he did. Let's go back with that again.
Yes, for reviewing all the data you provided. For me, I agree with our conclusion, and I don't agree with what you're saying. I guess that's hopefully a better way to answer your question.
Okay, so basically, if I'm understanding you correctly, then, is that you are not saying that you see the multiple blunt force trauma?
I'm answering that what I see is that we completed a thorough investigation and that I have not seen anything to date, including the information you provided me, that gives me any cause for concern that we missed something and that it needs to be reopened.
Would you say he answered the question?
I would say that he answered the question and he said, I don't see what you think is there. You might be saying that's there, but I know that that's not there. And I'm the one basically with the power and the experience
He's
and knowledge.
He's the
And I
real
know.
authority figure.
Yeah. He also says that he believes in his colleagues and
Right.
the conclusions that all the different colleagues and the different
Right.
departments.
Again, let's realize Apple Valley Police Department. Okay, we're not even going to go through BCA. BCA had like 4 or 5 people that were involved. The sheriff's department, I know, had approximately 5 or 6 people, okay, that were involved. And Apple Valley, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 investigators, and Detective.
But then you've got the people doing all of the lab stuff,
right?
Which they won't even like know all the ins and outs of the case. They're just being asked, test this sample,
Yep.
test that sample, extract if you can from that, do this with that, and then they come back and say, okay, well this is coming back matching with this, and this is coming back matching with that. They don't know necessarily what it relates to.
Right, but the Gummert,
like a murder or anything like that.
But you heard Gummert say to Catherine directly, our people looked at this stuff. We went over this. That's a body of people. It's not one person, it's not two. That was a body of people.
Yeah.
Okay. You got 9 investigators just from Apple Valley PD. 9.
Exactly. It's not like they might not have this high crime rate, but it's not like they're a little village out in the sticks with like 50 people living there, and like some small town little police station that just
Well,
bumbles along 30 years behind the rest of us.
in all fairness, Dan Hennen actually said they could have gone to a professional and they probably would have took a professional's opinion. BCA handles a ton of homicides a year and manslaughters and robberies and this and that. You don't think they would have asked BCA, hey, this is what we're thinking. What do you guys think?
Well, I'm sure that there is something somewhere where Detective Gummit is saying how they all kind of met at the end and they all
Mm-hmm.
had this big meeting, and it's discussing what each kind of department found, and them explaining their findings to sort of the group and presenting their findings, and then the next department would present what they would say, whether it was the DNA forensics or the latent prints or
You know what?
electronic stuff.
You know what I find in everybody, BCA, the Dakota County, Apple Valley. Okay, let's go to Apple Valley really quick. Okay, and Apple Valley's report. Okay, again, Apple Valley's report ends with that they had just checked the electronic equipment and it came back and there was nothing there. Throughout this investigation, Apple Valley Police Department has not discovered any information or evidence that shows anybody but, meaning except, David Crowley is, as in is, the perpetrator of these crimes, including the killing of his wife, child, and himself. Okay, that's one. Going over to Dakota County, okay, they actually came back and told everybody that they had found, not only did they find that David was sleep deprived and had used different drugs, everything that they found, okay, after reviewing all pertinent pieces of evidence, no information was found specifically related to the deaths of the Crowley family. Information was found that pointed to drug use between Mr. and Mrs. Crowley, and journal entries found on Mr. Crowley's phone indicated many sleep-deprived days for him. Okay, so this is saying that David was sleep-deprived. This is saying that there were drugs in use, the whole bit. Okay, now there's another thing that was here that says, as discussed, our evidence coupled with BCA's co-investigation concur with your findings that the adult female, okay, was shot, blah, 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 okay? And then it says the male perpetrator then turned the weapon on himself and discharged it, causing his subsequent death, okay? And they closed their file the same, all right? So the fact of the matter is, that's 3 different agencies right there and the coroner all saying David shot Kamel, he shot Rania, and then he shot himself. 4 agencies. And let's throw this little bit of whipped cream on top. The fact that Dan hired Ken Maines to look at the evidence, and Ken Maines came right back and told him the same thing. That's
And then
5.
the proverbial cherry on the top is that the families accept the conclusion of
Exactly.
the investigation.
And what's it going to take for them to stop bothering the families? The families should not have to deal with this. And now they're reaching out to other former police officers and bringing up other stuff that has nothing to do with this case. I'm sorry, but enough's enough.
It just reeks of desperation.
Some people feel they're entitled to things that they're not. And there are laws that say they're not entitled to certain things, and they just can't get that through their head.
It's because of people like them that there's laws in place, because they exploit things.
you
And
know,
it's down to, it's always the case that it's always a few that act out of line, that they mess everything up for everybody else. And everybody gets told with the same brush.
well, actually, I'm glad you're bringing that up because I believe it was Dr. Leon Kelly from the El Paso, Colorado coroner's office or medical examiner's office who said he, along with his colleagues, were actually trying to get a law passed so that people could not do exactly what is happening. Or did I miss something?
Well, there's some other cases that I looked at, and I'm not going to mention them or anything, but because they're unsolved, the families want justice. The families have got the documentation or the case, they've got the information and they've released pictures of their child who has been murdered because they want help. The Crowley and the Alam family don't want or need help. They don't want these photos out there. That choice was taken away from them,
They want their
and Dan
privacy.
decided to make that decision as
Yep,
to
they
what
want
should
their
be out on the internet.
they want their privacy. They want to heal. They want to grieve and they want to get on with their lives. They don't want to keep looking at this stuff over and over and over.
They want to remember the
The
good
good.
memories that they have of their children and their grandchild, their sister, their niece. They want to think of them and have fond memories and not be having that mental image of what was on the floor and how they were found, and having it constantly popping up on the internet whenever they type their name in.
The other thing that really gets me is people who call people and pretend to be other people so they can talk to people, like Mr. Alam's issue when he got his phone call while he was there with his wife. On top of that, also we know,
Phoning people at work.
right, and exactly, and then Kate Crowley. Here's this woman's trying to grieve, and she's getting phone calls from people asking questions, and I'm sure emails and everything else, and that's not right.
No, no, and she never said that she didn't think that David had done this. She never ever said that.
Nope.
She never came to Dan or Greg or their group and said, I think that there's something not right. Now, bear in mind that the group was set up 2 days after the bodies were discovered. So they were around, and the family sure as heck knew that they were being gossiped about. And if she thought for 1 minute that David didn't do this, she's going to have reached out to the other people on the internet who also are
She
concerned that
told
it
the
might not
she
have done it. And
told the
she didn't.
police. She told the police that she believed that if David did that David did this, and that if he did, Kamel was part of it. It was a joint
Yeah,
decision.
yeah, and that's not the same as saying he didn't do it.
Right. Not at all. Not even close.
He may not have known what he was looking at, didn't think it was anything serious. But once again, that's your job, right? So the other question is this. The other detectives who looked at that bone piece, that skull piece, obviously saw blunt force trauma on that skull.
I believe it said all these detectives were there. I believe Detective Gummert said nothing. He wasn't speaking about himself. He was speaking about the entire unit. Nothing these people have given them in the past 5, almost 6 years now has led them to believe led us. I can go back and play it. It says, led us to believe.
And you have to remember that saying that was used in the documentary, credibility means nothing to me. Well, that is clearly obvious.
It's obvious. They don't care about anything. They don't care about anybody.
No credible sources. Credibility means nothing. You don't need credibility. You just need to say that David didn't do it, and that's all that the justice group need for you to be a credible witness. But you try and stand up in court with that as your resume.
If you guys, any of you guys that are listening that are part of the justice group, please, 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 I cannot stress this enough to you. We're not just telling you what's going on, we're showing you evidence. You've actually heard Detective Gummert in his own words. Read the reports, they're out there. Don't take what you are being spoon fed as gospel. It's not. You're being
Find the
misled.
source.
Right? Don't listen to what you're being told is the truth. Find the truth. Please, please. I can't stress this enough to you. Okay? Look for yourself. Don't take what you're getting handed. You're being fed a bunch of bull and you're swallowing it hook, line, and sinker.
And then you are in part responsible for the pain that the families are still enduring, because you're going along selling this horrible rumor, pointing fingers at innocent people, ruining people's reputations, character assassination, and for nothing.
And Louise, they have to think about this. How would they feel if this was their family going through this?
Exactly. You have to take a step back and think, would I be okay with this? Would I be okay with pictures of my deceased child in that condition being thrown all over the internet? Because I wouldn't. I would be heartbroken.
So I think we're going to end this segment right now on this note, and then we're going to get back for part 3, which I think part 3 should do it. And hopefully those of you who listen, would listen to this. If you want, go back, re-listen to it, re-listen to Detective Gummert, go to Catherine Michelle's video. I actually implore you guys to go to December 29th, 2018 on Catherine Michelle's YouTube page. Listen to the video. Take the interjections out and listen to what Detective Gummert's actually saying. Don't listen to what you're getting told he's saying. Listen to his actual words. And then listen here, because we're giving it to you right now, right here. And I think I'll close with this right here again.
I agree with our conclusion, and I don't agree with what you're asserting. I guess that's hopefully a better way to answer your question.
Okay, so basically, if I'm understanding you correctly, then, is that you are not saying that you see the multiple blunt force trauma.
I'm answering that what I see is that we completed a thorough investigation and that I have not seen anything to date, including the information you provided me, that gives me any cause for concern that we missed something and that it needs to be reopened.
Okay, so again, you heard Detective Gummert say that over the last many years, they have not given the Apple Valley Police Department anything that gives them any cause or concern to think that they missed anything. They did not see multiple blunt force trauma like they're pushing. They
And
did
do not agree with any of the other ideas that
right.
they're
They
pushing.
don't exactly. They don't agree with anything that's been pitched at them. They don't believe Danny Mason did this. They don't believe Sean Wright did this. They don't believe David's dad did this. They don't believe the Mikes did this. Every week it's somebody else. Also, I think I should bring this out too. As
Hang
I
on a
put-
minute. And they don't believe that it's Danny Mason's dog.
True, exactly. And the other thing is, as we pointed out, this June 1st video was actually done December 29th of 2018. You guys are getting fed things. You're thinking that you're seeing new information because you're seeing yesterday. You're seeing, stuff that you think is new information, and it's not new information. What's happening is they're taking all this stuff from all the way back in 2015, 2016, and they're putting it back up there and making you guys think it's new. They have not gotten any pertinent information on this case for God, at least 2 years. They don't talk to the family. They don't talk to any of the Gray State team, but yet they will sit there and antagonize. They will sit there and they will harass.
But you have to remember as well, though, that they have spoken to some of the Grey State team, but they're all liars. They've spoken to some of the family, but they're also liars. They've spoken to friends, but because they don't agree, they're also liars.
Right. They're not right.
Part of it.
And Louise is
Those
not
any of
saying.
the associates that have ever worked with David, if they think that there's a chance, that actually David did do this, then they're compromised and
That's
their
another thing
reputation
too.
is put up for everybody to have a snap at.
That's another thing too. If you guys are listening and you hear what we just played back for you, and you actually do believe that there was no multiple blunt force trauma, you believe that David possibly did this, in your words, not mine. Okay, you have thought that David could have did this. I challenge you. I challenge you to go onto the justice group and present them with the evidence or just the idea that David could have possibly done this, and watch how quickly you are attacked. Louise, is there anything else you want to say before we go?
No, I think that's enough for
Okay.
another part.
We're going to thank you guys for listening to this segment and hope to get this next segment out to you shortly. Like I said, please, listen to not only my words, but Detective Gummert's words. I mean, we just showed you Dan stating whatever and the detective outright saying the exact opposite.
And we don't like sitting here seeing people being outright lied to. You're being lied to.
Right. We don't want to see you guys get lied to. We want you guys to know the truth. And the truth is out there and it's right there, but you're being misled. So thanks again for listening. And
Yes, thanks for listening.